Prosecutors will continue to lay out their case against Michael Jackson's former doctor today. The pop star's family returned to court yesterday following an emotional start to the manslaughter trial of Dr. Conrad Murray. On Wednesday, Jackson's former head of security took to the stand, and he described a frantic scene at Jackson's house in the moments after the singer's death.
Paris was on the ground, balled up, crying, and Prince was he was standing there. And he was just, he just had a real shock, just slowly crying type of look on his face. It was when I initially entered the room and I spoke with Alberto, I saw Mr. Jackson's body, and I came back and I was speaking with Alberto. This all had to be within a matter of 60 seconds. Shortly, Dr. Murray asked the question, does anyone know CPR?
Prosecutors are trying to prove Murray gave Jackson a lethal dose of drugs and failed to monitor his physical condition. For more, we are joined by Annemarie McAvoy. She is a law professor at Fordham University here in New York and a former federal prosecutor. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
I want to go back to that piece of sound just briefly, because he said he came out, Dr. Murray, and said, does anyone know CPR? How damaging is that?
Very. It really shows that he was not only inept, but completely negligent. He wasn't prepared for the situation. And what kind of doctor is he if he doesn't even know how to perform CPR in a situation like this, especially where he was prescribing to Michael Jackson the type of medications that he was?
After 2 days of this trial so far, we're just getting a look at it. What are your impressions at this point?
Well, clearly what the defense is going to try to do is show that there's some reasonable doubt. They just need to place a tiny bit of reasonable doubt into jurors' minds. And what they're trying to show is that there's a possibility, at least, that Michael Jackson took these drugs on his own without Conrad Murray actually giving them to him. But there's still the problem for the defense that the reality is Conrad Murray's the one who prescribed them and brought them in and so on, and knew that he was taking these medications. So even if they can prove that, I'm not sure that that will get them off. But if they can place reasonable doubt in the mind of the jurors, that's what they're trying to do in these first couple of days.
Are they also trying to show that Dr. Murray was more concerned about his own compensation than he was the health of Michael Jackson?
Well, that's certainly what the prosecution is trying to do, that he was worried about the money and making sure that he got his package together and whatever documents that needed to be signed so he could get his $150,000 a month. And in the meantime, he really wasn't worrying about treating Michael Jackson. In fact, it showed, I think so far already, they've pointed out that he was actually out of the room for 45 minutes while Michael Jackson was in there alone. And if he was indeed giving him this medication, he should have been there monitoring him the entire time.
How difficult of a case is this going to be for the prosecution?
Well, it's somewhat clear-cut in the sense that there's no question this was the doctor, he was the one responsible for Michael Jackson and so on, but they have a difficult time to be able to show in some ways that the juror shouldn't have any reasonable doubt in his or her mind, because Michael Jackson was alone for 45 minutes. Could he have taken the medication then? It's possible. We don't have Michael Jackson to tell us anymore what happened in that room and whether he took the medication before Dr. Conrad walked out of the room or after.
It seems like there's a lot of speculation here. So how does the defense prove that Michael Jackson did give himself that medication?
The reality is they don't have to prove it. All they have to do is kind of put it out there that this is a possibility, and the prosecution has to prove that it was actually Dr. Conrad who gave him the medication, or Conrad Murray rather, who gave him the medication. It's really up to the prosecution to have to prove the guilt. It's not up to the defense. They only have to say, there's a possibility somebody else might have been at fault, in fact, Michael Jackson himself, and then if there's reasonable doubt in one juror's mind, that's the end of it for the defense.
So in planting that reasonable doubt, there's no secret that Michael Jackson had a long career, and sometimes a very strange one with his behavior and all the other dealings that we've been playing out here in the media. But is it fair game to bring all of that into context within this trial?
Well, they're going to certainly be able to bring in at least his prior drug use or prior reliance on some of these prescription drugs that he was taking to show that this wasn't just something that happened when this doctor came in. This was a pre-existing dependence he had on these medications, and that's why he was taking them, and it wasn't this doctor's fault. That's what they're going to try to show in the defense.
Do you think Dr. Conrad Murray will take the stand? Is it smart for him to take the stand?
In some ways, maybe he gets some points if he does. I would doubt he will. Most lawyers in general tell their clients, almost never is it a good thing to take the stand, because you open yourself up to questions. And if he takes the stand, he's going to be opened up to all kinds of questions as to his motivation, as to why he would have even given him this type of medication, as to what he was doing, why he didn't know CPR. All of these things become then major, major questions, which are very difficult for him to answer. He's better off having his defense attorneys chip away at the prosecution witnesses, try to bring up some reasonable doubt, and then just leave it at that, because all they need is a little bit of doubt. The jury has to believe beyond a reasonable doubt that he actually was the one who gave him the medication. If that's not the case, he has a good chance of walking away from this. I think that the reality is there's a lot of evidence that he was a very bad doctor, and I think the jury may also look at him and say, you know, he's culpable anyway. But there's a chance he could walk away from it.
It's very interesting, no doubt. All right, Annemarie McAvoy, thanks so much for your insight. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.